Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. I honestly don't get how an interaction like this with a bus driver is possible. How is there time for this? You get on, swipe your pass, or purchase a ticket, wait for your stop, get off, and say thank you and leave. How does someone mess this up? But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. More bus driving tales from a bus driver guy. I'm driving along, big surprise, approaching a left turn. Now there's a stop a little ways back from the intersection just for me, and another one right at the light for the buses that go straight through. I pass my stop, then along comes a young woman who asks me to stop at the light. No can do. I'm not making a left turn from the right turn lane for your butt. Now she needs to keep going straight, and I try to tell her that I loop around and come back to that very same street so she doesn't have to walk all the way back from my next stop after I turn, which is a good 8 or 9 minute walk. But she doesn't want to hear it. First, she asks me to just pull over. Now, one thing you need to understand, if I stop anywhere other than my stops and something happens, slip, trip, fall, collision, whatever, that's on me. Sorry, but I'm not risking my job for you. Now she starts getting angry. Every time I try to talk, it's just, shut up, I don't want to hear it. Shut your mouth, blah, blah, blah. I'm getting to the next stop and she's still going. Now I'm starting to get pissed. I wouldn't talk to a dog the way she's talking to me. So I'm pulling over, she's mouthing off, and I think, F this, and pull away from the stop and keep going. Next stop's a good 15-minute walk back. She goes, what the hell? And all I say is, you didn't ring the bell. Which was technically true, but come on. She goes ballistic. You mother effer, F you piece of crap, etc. She starts pulling and tugging on my barrier like she's trying to rip it off the hinges, telling me she's going to do this and that and the other to me. Not the nicest move on my part, but again, if she would have stopped screaming at me for 2 GD seconds, I could have effing told her I'd get her back to the effing street she needed, closer to her destination. I pull over at the next stop, call the emergency line, open all my doors. She's screaming her head off while I'm on the line. They can hear the whole thing. They hop on the intercom and tell her to get off or the police will be dispatched. She screams, I'll wait for the effing police. I'm not going anywhere. I relay that to the emergency line. They send the police. Now she's standing there trying to get a rise out of me, calling me every name in the book. I just keep rolling my eyes forward and ignore her. Police show up, she starts up with them. This piece of crap bus driver. They cut her off, tell her to leave the bus to talk outside. One officer goes with her, one stays with me to take my statement. I explain the whole thing. Then both officers go talk to her for a while. They all come back to the bus, and now her demeanor is drastically changed. She says to the officers, I have a question about... And I can't hear the rest, but she's basically acting like a scared puppy. They just tell her the instructions are on the back and you'll have to walk down to street she wanted. She leaves and one of the officers says to me, she was being a real bee. I had a hard time not laughing my butt off. He continues, your bylaws have some teeth to them. I wrote her about $500 worth of tickets for impeding the flow or transit and a few other things. Anyway, we're done. You can just wait for your supervisor. I thank them and do just that, reveling in the knowledge that today justice was swift and ruthless. And our second story. You don't think I'm doing my job? Fine. There's no reason for me to be here. I have many stories like this, but this one is still funny to me to this day, and has also gotten me blacklisted from a certain fast food franchise with golden arches. Back in 2016-17, I was working at this fast food joint, which happened to be right off the interstate. So as you can imagine, it was very busy all the time. I was around 16 at the time, so I was in high school still. I worked at this place almost all the time that I was free from school, but had the occasional day off. More often than not, I would get called into work because this spot was so busy. We were very understaffed, and because I knew all working positions and could switch between them and pick up other people's slack. So on this particular day, my general manager called me up, and I came into work. One of my really good friends was there, so that was refreshing, and we were put in the window together, where I might say we absolutely crushed it. So there we are. I'm handing out drinks and orders. He's taking orders. It's a constant flow of customers, and the general manager is where? In the office. Not a problem. That's his job. The problem started when the line got backed up, and either we were waiting on food or we were waiting for them to pay at the other window. My point is, something wasn't right, and it had nothing to do with what was going on in the front drive-thru where we were. We'd already pulled up orders in every spot possible. So we start talking about who knows what while we waited. About that time, here comes the GM on his high horse. He takes it upon himself to come to the front and yell at me specifically, saying that he didn't call me into work just so I could play around, and that he was tired of me not doing anything, and that I needed to do my job because why else was I here? Like I said before, we were absolutely slammed, but handing out and taking orders like crazy. But we were at a standstill waiting on something. It's worth adding that this job had a rule of staying in our positions, especially when it was busy. So to that I respond, well, if you feel like I'm not doing anything, sir, there's no reason for me to be on your clock on my day off, is there? And I marched right over, clocked out, and went home. I heard the news from everyone else that they were all very upset with the GM for this, as they called me into work because I was obviously a big help knowing all the positions, and also being available to help until they were at a point to where they could handle it alone, or until other workers came in. Needless to say, it was a train wreck for them, and they got their butts handed to them. And I never got another complaint from anyone, especially not when I was working on my day off. Edit to add, I thought that was me quitting, honestly, but they called me the next day begging me to come back and saying they were sorry. And our next story. Okay, I won't put the signs that save you money on the pumps. So I worked for a chain of petrol stations in the UK as a supervisor. Used to go store to store, help keep them clean, stocked, and staffed. When contactless card readers were first introduced, the owners refused to put them in any store. The ones people can just tap their card on if the payment's under £30. More and more people were getting contactless cards, but the bosses still refused. Their logic was sound initially in that if people were filling their tank, they were going to spend more than £30. The majority of people, however, were filling up just enough to use their contactless payment and then getting mad that they had to enter 4 numbers. A travesty. Anyway, this led to one person every 10 minutes kicking off that we weren't able to take contactless payments, and one person every 30 minutes effing up their PIN and then not being able to make payment. In every site I went to every day of the week. I had a particularly bad week where I had to let about 1,500 pounds worth of petrol go over 3 sites because people assumed we were contactless, then forgot their PINs. If anyone's ever not been able to pay for petrol in the UK, there's nothing they can do to get you to come back. The police won't deal with it unless the person's a repeat thief over several months in stores. Genuinely, if you're ever stuck for cash and need to fill up, drive off for less than 50 pounds just once, and there will likely never be any follow-up. So I let these people leave. They never came back. We get blamed because the customer didn't know we weren't contactless. I put signs up on all the pumps, went around 10 sites, politely informing all customers to either know their PIN or have cash. It works really well for about a week until we have our area manager going around for site visits. He gets to site number 1 and sees the signs on the pumps and flips his crap, sending messages in the manager's chat demanding any sites with signs on their pumps take them down, as the fuel supplier would not be happy that we were defacing their signs with our own. Personally, I thought they'd be more PO'd we were giving their fuel away for free, but whatever. All the signs were taken down and we start losing money again. Shocker. I wasn't standing for being scolded like a child for thinking about loss and decided, okay, no signs on the pumps. I spent the next day making crudely drawn bubble writing signs on A3 paper that I then plastered in the front windows of 5 or 6 stores that managers agreed with me and found it hilarious. The windows were blacked out, save the window by the till, so the cashier can see the forecourt, health and safety and all that, with signs facing outward looking like they'd been drawn up by a dyslexic toddler that stated, "Not contactless," facing out for everyone driving by to see. It went from a subtle printed sign on each pump to plastered windows. No signs on the pumps, though. And our last story. My neighbor's son destroyed my bee house and killed my mason bees. This spring, I decided to finally indulge my interest in bees. I bought bee houses so I could keep mason and leafcutter bees this spring and summer, as well as a stock of mason bees. My neighbor, who I'd always had a cordial relationship with prior to this, was mowing his lawn and asked me what I was doing while I was setting up the bee house, and I told him. He freaked out and said that the bees were going to sting his children. I explained to him that mason bees are super gentle, they aren't guarding honey or a hive, so they have no need to be aggressive. That they only sting if squished or trapped, and their stings are relatively painless. He was still unhappy. My neighbors became very angry with me, and his wife posted about how my bees were dangerous on social media. Yesterday morning, I found that my bee house had been destroyed and the bees in it killed. My other neighbor has a camera in his backyard, and it was able to see my neighbor's son and his friends destroying my bee house and spraying something on my bees that killed them. I work midnight shifts as an essential worker and wasn't home to hear the commotion. I called the police and the officer was very dismissive, saying they were just bees and you really want a kid to go to jail over bees? I got the impression nothing would be done. Even if they were just bees, that kid still destroyed my property, and I spent a good chunk of money on the bees and bee house. A few days later, I was informed my neighbor's brother is a cop in our town, which makes their reaction make way more sense. I'll probably have to go the small claims route. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.